Phil has introduced me. A lot of you know me already. I'm a forestry manager and consultant in the private sector in Ireland. And I've been around for a bit in ProSilva circles. I'm on the committee of ProSilva Ireland, and I'm the past chairperson of ProSilva Ireland, which was founded in 2000. So many of you will know, or might know, the history of forestry in Ireland. We're dealing with a resource which is very new. Kind of a history of deforestation up until the beginning of the 20th century, and even some deforestation in through to the middle of the 20th century as well. So we built a resource, or the country's built a resource from 1% cover at the beginning of the 20th century to about 11% now. But the resource is not based on natural forests or native forests. It's based on plantation forests. And now we're at a stage in the country where we're trying to, some of us at least, are trying to change that and turn the ship around and transform some of these forests over a long period of time. So most of what we are doing in Ireland is transformation rather than actual steady-state management. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the current sites we have in AFI, and I think I wasn't here, Andy, unfortunately, for your presentation, but I think you probably talked about ISN. Yeah. So the current sites we have in AFI and ISN, the ownership of those sites and the funding mechanisms we have for them, the personnel we have involved, we have an issue with reporting, which Phil knows about, and just a few things about the future. So this is Ireland. You all know it. It's that bit over in the forest side of Europe, next stop America. And we've currently got 5 working AFI sites. They're the green dots on the map. 4 are currently undergoing their 3rd measurement. So they're 10 years old. And 1 has had 2 measurements, and it's 8 years old, so in 2 years' time it'll get another measurement. We've also got 3 former AFI plots, and this tells you a little bit about where we are in Ireland as well. One of them blew down in Storm Darwin. Nobody could do anything about it. You can nearly predict. Oops. Did I go back? This one here. But unfortunately, 2 of them got clear-felled by the State Forestry Company. And that's due to lack of communication within the state forestry. Most of the initiatives that are happening in continuous cover forestry in Ireland are through the private sector. And we've taken, it's been a very, very slow process in trying to convince the state and institutions of the state to get involved and to get on board with it. They like the idea of it, but they're afraid of it. So we've been working hard, increasingly so, and there's greater acceptance and appreciation all the time. And in addition to those, we have 9 ISN sites, or we will have in a couple of weeks' time. There's a couple left to be put in. And they are the purple dots on the map. So you'll see we have a little bias over here because that's where I live. In terms of ownership, the first stat is wrong, I'm afraid. We've got 3 of them are owned by the state and 2 are privately owned. And all of the ISN are on private sites. So up until now, all of the AFI sites have been funded, or the measurements have been funded by the owners themselves, whether they're state or private. And we have one site, one private site, being funded by a distilling company, Irish Distillers. And they've got involved because they want to influence and be involved in the promotion of good silviculture in oak in Ireland. So this is an oak stand, a young oak stand, typical of the young new generation of oak stands we're establishing in the country at the moment. And they want to be beside us as we kind of grow that resource and to influence and help to influence the management of them in a positive way. The ISN sites and the current remeasure of the AFI sites is being funded under a technical assistance grant from the Natural Capital Funding Facility of the European Investment Bank. And just to step back from that, what's happened is the European Investment Bank have got involved in an investment fund in Ireland, along with some impact investors. And that is a fund which is managing forests under CCF, under Close to Nature Management. And they're doing this in order to help us to influence a change in forest policy in Ireland through that investment. And on the back of the investment, they've created this grant, or they've provided this technical assistance grant. And there's lots of things happening under that, including work on deer management, work on these monitoring plots, in other words, the ISN plots. There's lots of different side projects involved in that. So that's our current round of funding, or source of funding, so we're actually well placed in that regard. We've one plot I didn't mention in Northern Ireland, just go back up here, which is part of Baronscourt Estate, private estate, and that's funded by the owners themselves. In terms of personnel, we have a small team of people who are familiar with the process. Phil has been very involved in Ireland, and we're very glad to have him. Myself and Porter Gatuma, who many of you know. And we've got some experienced field assistants, Donal O'Hare in the picture, a familiar face to a lot of you, John Byrne and Niall O'Neill as well. But we don't have anybody in Quilcha in the state forestry. These are all private operators. So we don't have anybody in the state forestry who are involved in AFI measurements. And we need to change that. We need to address that. So the big problem we have is that even though we're entering the third round of measurements, we've only got the first round of results. And so we've no reports from the 2017 and 2018 remeasurement of AFI plots. And this means, as managers, while we believe in AFI and we really need this information, this data, we're not getting it. We're not getting the benefit of it yet. I was very jealous to see other data up on screens. I'd love to be providing data, but I don't have it. This also means that, again, problems with Quilcha, we have a credibility issue with Quilcha and the funders of the plots. And we need to fix this as a matter of urgency. In terms of the future, we now have a good network of AFI and ISN stands, and they're going to be used for informing our management decisions. The main purpose is to tell the story of CCF in Ireland, because, again, we've been kind of wading against the tide on this. There's a culture in Ireland of clear-cut and replant silviculture, if you want to call it silviculture. And we are working hard to offer alternatives. And the best way to do so is to demonstrate, but also to present data. So we're using them to tell the story of CCF in Ireland. We're hoping that it will inform modelling. I think, Andy, you might have mentioned that. We're hoping that it will inform some modelling. And that's part of the EIB funded project, is to do some of that work. And also to develop further biodiversity and carbon-based inventory measures. So that work, is part of the EIB technical assistance work grant. We've also, in addition to the ISN and AFI plots, we've also developed a network of telescopes in conjunction with Quilcha and Teagasc for training purposes. And they're quite active at the moment. There's a lot of interest on the ground amongst the new generation of forest owners and with Quilcha themselves and their staff in training in CCF. So we've got a number of these telescopes established at this stage and training courses ongoing all the time. And Sinead, as they say, Oscuelga. That's it. Thank you.